Hey everybody, and welcome to the Green Umbrella Live Lunch. It is International Recruiters Day, so I am especially happy to have today's live lunch be dedicated to that. And we've got some wonderful friendly faces joining us. So we've got, I feel like a drum roll or something for this, but we've got Stephen O'Donnell, who is known from the Noras and various other things, and the founder of International Recruiters Day. We've got Nigel Angus from Next Move Recruitment, who is a seasoned recruiter. And we've got Andy, and in a moment we'll be joined by Tom as well from Levandi Talent, who is also a seasoned recruiter, but their business has just been up and running a couple of years now. So, and then we've got Mark, obviously not a recruiter, but he's here too. So I guess we should mention him.
Just to make up the numbers.
Absolutely. So I have to. That's all we bring him on for. I have to.
They're also very good at websites.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
I'm sat in my bedroom. I have COVID. Don't give me any sympathy because I actually feel all right. It's just the cough is driving me insane. So I might not be at my usual level of energy, but it's okay because I've got a bunch of recruiters on to do it for me, right? This is going to be good. So I'm going to kick off. I'm going to come straight to you, Stephen. So obviously, International Recruitment Day, when did you start it? Tell us a story.
So there is a bit of a story. So it actually started as a bit of a joke, and some might say, well, it's recruitment. Of course it did. But this is the 11th year of International Recruiters Day. It came about as a result of a conversation with Stacey Zapar. Stacey is the most connected woman on LinkedIn. She's got 35,000, 40,000 connections on LinkedIn. And on a chat with her, I jokingly said, because there seems to be a day for everything, have a happy International Recruiters Day. She then shared it with her audience on LinkedIn, who all asked, "Oh, what about International Recruiters Day? What's happening?" So straight away I thought, "Oh, bugger, I'm going to have to make a website and get the Twitter account and do all that." So one thing led to the other, and it's been going ever since. It isn't a formal thing in as much as there's an event. There isn't a party or a Zoom call or an event that you can turn up to. There aren't any sponsors involved. There's a website, and each year we ask recruiters just to kind of pause for a second and recognize what they do and how important it is that they do. Because when you're working in recruitment, you tend to be head down, backside up, focusing on what you're doing day in, day out, and there isn't a minute to take a breath. But recruiters are the oil or the grease in the gears of commerce and industry. And without recruitment, so many things just wouldn't happen. Recruiters are the catalyst in the middle of all these things. And when the markets rise and fall, then recruiters are there to make sure that people are finding the right place for themselves in the musical chairs that is recruitment. So it's one day. It isn't something that we take dreadfully seriously, although we take recruitment seriously. But as I say, it's just a bit of recognition. What we've asked people to do this year, and quite a number of people have contributed, is to put in a short video just saying what recruitment means to them. So we've got everyone from Anne Swain at AppsCo, Neil Carberry at the REC, Peter Weddle at TA Tech, and many others, hands-on recruiters in TA and in agencies, giving a short message. So if you go to the website, internationalrecruitersday.com, then you'll see all of those there. And you probably have seen me sharing the videos all over LinkedIn and all the socials. But as I say, it's really just a recognition of the work that recruiters do. And if you run a search on LinkedIn right now, there are something like a couple of million names that come up with recruiter in the job title. So I think it's well worth recognizing that once a year.
Fantastic. I mean, yeah, I've seen the videos popping up and it is great. I think we forget just how integral recruitment is to so many businesses and their stories. And it's like recruiting is exhausting. You know, it's like, it's one of those things you really have to plan for it. Then you've got the process of finding the right people, getting them onboarded. Then you've got to think, like, retain them as well. And if it doesn't work out, like, you know, deal with that situation as well. And we've got 3 people on this call that choose to do that day in, day out. It's like, it takes a special kind of person to do the job, right?
People often speak about the serious side of things, and there are plenty of things to be serious about it. But you need to also remember it's a riotously, hilariously funny and interesting job to do, because you get an insight to people's lives. If you're a nosy Parker like me, then you get that real intimate moment where you're speaking with candidates and clients and people at all levels, and they're revealing things to you that they wouldn't tell the partners or family or friends. And it can be funny, it can be endlessly entertaining, and it's a real privilege at the same time. So when recruiters get together, everyone has war stories. Everyone has stories of something that went right, and usually a lot of things that went wrong. And it's a fascinating business to be in.
So Nigel, you've been doing this for, so when we were prepping before, I said, Nigel, it's 20 years, isn't it? He was like, well, actually, it's a couple more. But you must have some stories from over that time.
I don't think we've got enough time to share them, really. I've been in the recruitment industry now for 23 years, and
Wow.
Very, very long time. That's why I look a bit warm. But no, Stephen, it's really interesting with what you've been saying, actually, because I think as a recruiter, you sometimes forget how important our job is, because without having a good recruitment partner, it's very difficult for companies to really achieve their goals. I know that with other platforms such as LinkedIn, job boards, etc., that companies can do their own recruitment direct, but when you really partner with a good recruitment consultant or good recruitment firm, that can pay dividends. And the advantage with being within the industry for as long as I have is that you see the benefits of that. So to see companies grow, departments grow, companies sell, directors exit, it's really, really rewarding. But also seeing candidates who start off as juniors and progress throughout their careers and become, managers, directors, etc. Immensely rewarding. But yes, there are some funny stories and situations along that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. The variety of stuff that you can get into is can be way beyond the regular recruitment. I've been involved with companies who were looking to, decide on a greenfield site to build their factory and then find all the staff for that. So being involved from the very beginning of a company is great. And also, you wouldn't call it strictly recruiting, but in some cases being the agent for sale of companies where you know the industry so well that you can be involved in selling a company on their behalf. And it's very simple. It's similar to recruitment, but you've got the connections to do that. So yeah, it can be really fascinating.
Yeah.
So how much has the business of recruitment changed in that time, Nigel? Like, because you've seen some, like you've seen recessions, you've seen, obviously we don't know the pandemic, but it's like the way you do recruitment now versus like, what do you wish, like what you were doing 15 years ago, what do you wish still worked today that like just doesn't anymore? Or like where are those, like what are the things where you just kind of go like, I wish I had my Rolodex again? Or
well, it's changed significantly. I mean, going back to when I first started back in the 90s, we had fax machines. You'd be submitting CVs by fax machine, and that is showing my age there. And the internet had just basically started around the 90s, emails, etc. But what hasn't changed is the fact that you still need to find good talent. Candidates good candidates won't necessarily, apply for a role. They won't necessarily respond to a message on LinkedIn. So you do need recruiters to be proactive, to actually go out there and find and identify and approach those best talent. So that hasn't changed. So the process in terms of, sitting down with a client, taking down a really good brief, understanding the requirements, the culture of the company, and then going out and finding and sourcing the candidates and approaching them. The process is still exactly the same. But back in my day, there wasn't such things as marketing. And, well, there was marketing, but in terms of social media, there was no social media, there was no Facebook, there was no LinkedIn. In terms of business development, I was brought up with kind of picking up the phone and phoning people, phoning companies, trying to get through the gatekeeper, and so forth. And that's all changed now. Companies don't often have their numbers on their websites. You've got to complete a form, or you've got to send a message to engage with them. So the whole kind of, platform of kind of engaging with companies has changed, and social media is such a big thing. So it took me a long time to kind of embrace the social media. I built up my business on the basis of relationships, just kind of building very good relationships with companies and delivering. And then after a while, you then find that there's more to it than that now. You have to invest in your kind of social media and marketing to kind of reach out to new business. It's not as easy as before to pick up the phone and start to phone people. People want to know of you, they want to know about you before they actually engage. So it's changed significantly. I don't know what Tom and Andy think, because you've been in it a shorter time than me, so you're in the modern era, as it were. I'd be interested to find out your thoughts as well.
I think I'd kind of echo that, Nigel. Obviously, I don't go as far back as the faxes, although I am old enough to remember fax machines and the battles with fax machines and the rolls of paper in fax machines. I've never had to submit one via a CV via fax. So yeah, quite interesting that it all started off like that. But I guess I'd kind of echo, and I think recruiters nowadays are very, very lucky in that a lot of the processes, a lot of the kind of techniques and the systems that we use, there's a lot of automation involved. Yeah. So we've got, I always say to the guys, you're very, very lucky to have, we had to manually search the job boards, and how we do that nowadays, like we use a platform called Sourcebreaker now, which searches all of the job boards all together. So it's just so much more streamlined and not having to go through that whole process of going to CV library, then to total jobs, and then to your next job board. Everything is just so streamlined nowadays. So yeah, I think that they are very lucky, but it's just a shame that they don't see that sometimes. Like I'm like, turning a job around nowadays is so much more quicker than what it was 12 years ago. But they've only ever known it is what it is now, because they've got that resource to do it. So it has become, I guess, a quicker process. Excuse the background noise. I think they've just had a party walking. So yeah, I think it's just got a lot quicker, a lot more streamlined, and again, I'd echo the whole marketing thing, like you say, Nigel. It's not as easy as just going on now and getting a phone number, or picking up the phone. There's a lot of, you need the marketing kind of support to run in line with that, to be able to get new clients on. It's not just as simple as picking up the phone anymore. It's more of a a detailed process that works in line with the marketing strategy. So yeah, that's my thoughts. What's your thoughts, Tom?
So I'm one of the lucky ones, aren't I? So I've heard the story. I've heard the stories from you and Gary, and it's by no means easy, but in comparison to how you and Gary used to do it, from the stories you told me, we do have it a lot easier because a lot of it is automated and system generated now, isn't it?
Back in the olden days.
Yeah, I think it's important because everything's more streamlined now, and you're not picking up the phone and just ringing clients, and there's other ways to connect with them. It's important to find ways to build that relationship with them still as well, though, because it can kind of take away from building that relationship with them because you're not on the phone and getting them that way. If that makes sense.
That's something that's really interesting, because when you walk into the Lavandi Talent office, which is Andy's business, and Tom is basically the king of operations in that business, right? When you walk in, it is a young team there. And a lot of recruitment businesses that I go into, when there's a younger team, I talk to the business owner and he's like, the frustration is you can't get them to use the phone. But when you walk into that office, it's like everyone's on the phone, and you can tell the tone of the conversation. It's like people have just rung their best mate. It's not like this is a business call. So I think there's this fine line when it comes to that relationship building today, with all the automation that's available, with the reliance on social media, that kind of stuff. And this is relevant in all businesses, that we don't lose that art of just being able to pick up the phone and talk to people.
One of the key deciding factors when I started recruitment way back in when everything was in Latin was that people would naturally be, if they hadn't been in a sales environment before, they would naturally be hesitant to pick up the phone, and it seemed, you know, impertinent to phone someone else in their office and, you know, demand their time by asking for them, or, you know, speaking with someone who appeared to be more senior than you, or headhunting someone in their office, calling them about a job elsewhere, seemed to be the most brazen thing. But you kind of learn to be able to do that. And some people in recruitment, they would get to a point where they could become scared to pick up the phone. They'd been doing it for a long time, and then they would get a couple of misses. They would, you know, a couple of deals would fall through. Candidates were rude to them, or clients, and so on. And every time they picked up the phone, it seemed that they heard bad news and they weren't able to handle that. And that was a real thing to overcome, or to build someone's confidence back up so that they could do it again. And some people, well, quite a lot of people left recruitment because they hit that wall and they just couldn't pick up the phone. So getting over that was a real thing. So when we switched to the emphasis being less on calling people out of the blue and surprising them with a message, to sending them emails or text messages or through social media and so on, to an extent, the old school recruiters looked on that as, oh yeah, that's just another way of hiding and avoiding making personal contact with someone. You're hiding behind the technology. You're sending out a message that you've typed, as opposed to, you know, taking a chance with a call. Because on a call, someone might ask you a question you don't know the answer to. They might challenge what you're saying to them. Whereas in an email, you can consider and check everything that you're putting down before you send it to them. So it's a different pace of things. In a lot of ways, people think of recruitment now as faster than it was before, and maybe in time to hire it is, but you still have space to make sure that you're saying and doing the right things, and automation can absolutely help in a lot of that. But yeah, you had to think on your feet before, when you were on calls with someone. If a client was shouting at you for getting something wrong, or a candidate was berating you for, you know, demanding that they take, you know, time off work to go for an interview, or, you know, trying to persuade them on the merits of a job, then you had to think on your feet and you had to be persuasive. And these days, being, you know, orally persuasive is just not called for in the same way as it used to.
So we've talked about the business of recruitment and the serious side of it so far. But from having worked with quite a few recruiters, and it's like, Steve, you already talked about this already. Like, you're a fun bunch of people to be around. Like, some of the stories that come out are just brilliant, in terms of like some of the candidate stories over the years, the excuses for people not turning up at interview, the you know, you're resilient folk. You get given a lot of BS excuses for when candidates want to let you down, and they let you down all the time, I reckon. So I I mean, Stephen, you must have some stories.
I had a woman phone me one time. Actually, she didn't phone me, but I phoned her because she didn't show up for an interview. And I called, and I was all set to give her a hard time when she told me that her daughter's horse had to be put down and she had to hold the head, so she couldn't go to the interview. And there was one other time where I had a candidate lined up for an interview who actually was in a crash on the way to the interview and unfortunately passed away. So it's pretty not funny at all. But at the time, the client's phoning, "Where's this candidate?" And yeah, but there are all sorts of stories. I remember I had a number of temp workers working in the factory at the iron brew factory, and maybe about 40 of them working in packing. And every now and then the salaries didn't go through. So when the salaries didn't go through, I would have to turn up with a briefcase full of cash to pay the temps on a Friday, and it was always mayhem because, well, if you can imagine the iron brew factory on a Friday, and me turning up with a briefcase full of money, it was very, very odd. There was another guy one time, I remember. I'm always a soft touch for candidates, and he said, "I can't go to work. My motorbike's broken, and it's in for repair." So, like an idiot, I said, "Well, I've got a scooter. You want to borrow it for a couple of days?" So he borrowed my scooter, and it took me about 6 weeks to get the bloody thing back. I eventually had to go back and steal it back from his front door late at night one night. I'm a soft touch. Can't hear you, Christina.
So I had a coughing fit, so I muted myself. Andy, I could see you giggling to that. So what's the most outrageous thing you've had to do on behalf of the candidate?
Sorry, Christine, was that to me? I'm kind of breaking up. I've got a Hoover bash in the background. My apologies. So did you say most outrageous thing? Oh, I mean, there's endless things I've had to do. I think that the biggest story that I think is a standout one for me, the most hilarious one, is there was a guy that his grandfather. I think I've told you about this before, Christina. His grandfather had passed away, and I think he passed away 4 times with 4 different members of staff. So we'd put him in these interview processes, and he's each for every interview process. Little be known to the others, and I think we kind of keep notes more up to date nowadays. But his grandfather passed away 4 times. I mean, why would line an interview up 4 times just to not go, just to say that your grandpa's died is just absolutely beyond me. But I think as recruiters, we try and kind of make the excuses for them, or if we do think there's some belief there, or if we do think, well, maybe they are telling the truth, it's just so hard to try and, I guess, know whether they are or aren't telling the truth. But I think as recruiters, we're forever trying to, we put ourselves in the way just to protect them, to just to help the journey, really. But yeah, that's the recruiter's job.
I think candidates are your biggest asset, and probably your biggest pain in the backside as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Nigel, what are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree totally with Andy. As a recruiter, you kind of, you are that buffer between the client and the candidate. So even if you think the candidate is possibly going to let you down or not, or being a bit economical with the truth, you'll always try to present them in the best light. You'll always try and give them the benefits of the doubt. And even though you know that, the chances are is that they'll let you down, there's always that chance that they may just be genuine, you know, and if they're a really good candidate, you have to take that chance. So you do end up being the fall guy for the candidate. And that's happened to me many a times where I've kind of protected the candidate and, you know, kind of said to the client, look, you know, this has happened, you know, they can't make it. They've just called me because they've got an emergency at home, you know. And sometimes it's worked out and sometimes it hasn't, you know. And when it does work out, client wins, the candidate wins. You know, when it doesn't, then you have to go back to the drawing board. But you take that hit as a recruiter. So we're punching bags. That's what we are.
It can be the same the other way around, where you've got an employer who is terrible at the entire hiring process. They are, just, you know, and I've had to explain to candidates, look, this is a great company to work for, but they're crap at recruiting. The hiring manager doesn't know what he's doing, but is a lovely person. So you're kind of covering up for the errors of the employer to the candidate. So it's very much a two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the reason I was doing that is that our last couple of hires, Nigel actually recruited for us.
Mm-hmm.
And even with everything I know about the battles that recruiters have with their clients, I was still that client that
From hell
didn't sign off the job ad quick enough, asked about the job description, was like, I don't know really.
Oh dear.
Like, sent candidates and he was like, come on, Christina, we're gonna lose them. Like, it was I literally ticked every box of all the things recruiters don't want a client to do.
Yeah. After Nigel,
I'm transparent.
To your credit though, Christina, you do listen. So
don't tell Mark that.
I mean, when I started working with you, I knew, and this is a similar example to other clients that I have who are that busy within their business. They know they've got to recruit, they know they've got to hire to take the business to the next level. They don't necessarily want to, because they don't want to go through that process and pain, because it can be pain. But they know they've got to do it. And as a recruiter, I know that, you know, to even get the job spec properly and to get the processes kind of nailed down to how we're going to do it, you know, you do have to take the lead with that, and you do have to say, right, you know, okay, let's talk about this, Christine. Let's talk about the job description. So there was an awful lot of, you know, anticipation that things weren't going to be perfect in terms of having everything documented and everything ready. But we worked through it together, didn't we? And I worked with Christina, and, you know, we kind of managed to achieve 2 very good hires. But
so that's really interesting, because it's a two-way street there, where you're finding candidates for Christina, but how is Christina as the provider, as the marketing provider? Because again, that's where Christina would have the expertise, whereas in the recruitment, that's where your expertise is. So, you know, as a customer, if you like, as a client, how's Green Umbrella from that point of view? And were you able to say, you know?
Yeah, I mean, from a marketing perspective, absolutely brilliant, because it's very easy to speak to candidates to say, look at their website, you know, because it's all there, you know, the videos, you know, the Facebooks, the, you know, all the, you know, everything is there to see. So the personality of the staff as well, you know, doing these things, the live lunches, it's all there. So in terms of the, I guess what I call it, employee value proposition, you know, why should somebody work for Green Umbrella as opposed to their competitors? You know, it's clear to see, it speaks for itself. So my job wasn't that difficult in having to sell Green Umbrella, because it sells itself, and that's a testament of you know, the marketing.
Cool.
Oh, he says such nice things. I mean, like, obviously that's just when people looked at my stuff, not when they looked at Mark's stuff, right?
Unbelievable. This is what I have to put up with in the office all the time.
I remember doing the job spec thing, and like Nigel's like, like, what kind of person are we looking for, and that sort of stuff. And I was very me about it all, and I was like, there can't be a knobber, they can't irritate me. And I was like, we need more people like Mark that can just take me as I am and just go with it. It was
just shut off sometimes.
And I could like hear it in Nigel, like he was like really composing himself, and I could just hear it in his voice going like, how do I put that in a job spec? Oh dear. Tom, let's have a chat with you now. Unmic yourself. So you're in a slightly different position in that you're not the business owner. So
Yeah.
the business owners, they come in, like, if we think like marketing wise and brand wise and all that sort of stuff, the business owners go to events, they listen to people like me and telling them this is what you should do, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. And then they come back to their team, i.e. you, and they're like, I've had a great idea, we're going to do this. And you just have to implement it all.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. So to be fair, because when Andy and Gary opened, it was obviously just when the pandemic started. So this year is the first time they've been able to start going to events and doing all that. So even though they've been going over 2 years now, this side of it is still brand new for us.
And how prepared are you for what's to come?
With Andy and Gary, you always have, you prepare, you've got the best intention. And we'll just see. It sounds like they had a great day yesterday, though.
Yeah, so Andy and Gary Gary was supposed to be with us, but unfortunately he's unwell. And like, can I just say at this point, Gary, I've got freaking COVID. Like, come on now. Grow a pair. No, I'm joking. So, but you're at an event in Paris at the minute, aren't you?
They are at an event in Paris, yeah. So I've not, I don't know how it's going. I've not had a chance to catch up with them yet. When Andy and Gary are away, I just tend to leave them to it, so they can crack on with stuff there, and then we'll catch up when we're back. But I spoke to them briefly yesterday, and it sounds like it was very effective. Yeah, I got all the photos and the videos.
Are they fit for sharing publicly on social?
Maybe a few extra ones up in the bar.
Up until last night, there was, yeah.
So I think recruiters have been known in the past for being quite social animals. And I do feel like over the last few years, there's been this kind of shift where it's become, obviously, like COVID's had its effect, but we don't see so much anymore the like the big incentive trips that used to happen that would be shouted about everywhere, that would actually leave a bit of a bad taste in the mouth of the clients when they're thinking about their fees and that sort of stuff. Do you think that recruitment has just really changed the way it wants to be perceived? Or do you think recruiters are just still very much like, we're here to do a job? And
on that, I actually think that the recruitment industry, voluntarily or not, leads the way in terms of progressing modern ways of looking at diversity, equity, inclusion, working environments, employer branding, marketing automation, and the way people feel about their work, as well as perhaps the way that companies are coming around to, well, how do we have a work from home policy or a flexible working policy? How do we hire people from different backgrounds that we've previously tapped into? How do we get more productive people for less grief and build more sustainable companies? So I think from a corporate responsibility point of view, recruitment agencies, despite maybe conversely from their reputation as being post-driving wankers in the 90s, then can I say that? I just did. But
Nigel drives a Porsche.
Sorry, Nigel. But
he's a lovely guy, I promise. He really is.
Well, if you're going to drive a Porsche, you're going to ask for it. But I think recruitment agencies are tuned into being a bit more corporate responsible these days, and actually influencing their own clients as to how they can evolve in that way. So sorry about that, Nigel.
That's okay.
It was the first thing that came to mind. I should have said Audi.
I think on the whole, I think on the whole incentive front, we've picked back up on that this year. Oh, who've we lost? Have we lost Christina?
Christina, yeah.
She's having a laugh.
Carry on. She'll be back. Yeah, I think we've kind of picked back up on the whole incentive front this year, obviously because of everything's changed and we're getting back to normal. But I think one thing that I've noticed is that companies are doing like the big, and we've got an Ibiza one, we've got a scheme one as well. And I think sometimes you kind of look at them and think, well, are you actually doing that for the staff, or are you actually doing it to kind of, make the agency kind of good? It's kind of, I always look at it with a balance. And I think, so for example, we've just made one, which is, I think in comparison to what a lot of the others are doing, this will sound quite bizarre, but we're actually doing one that's going to Blackpool. And that's on the basis that that's what the staff actually want.
Yeah. I take it no one's gone to Paris then because the Wi-Fi is terrible. Yeah, but those kinds of incentives can work really well, but the key to think is, will everyone actually appreciate this? Because sometimes you might say, right, we're all going off to Magaluf for the weekend. And for someone in the staff, they might be thinking, can I just have the cash? Because that's the very last place I'd want to go. Or I don't want to go anywhere with you lot. There was times in the past where I've taken the team to Barcelona and to Milan for a couple of nights away. And it's been great. But there's always someone who, I don't know if I can come. I don't know if I fancy it. And for the money that I spent, I would be better just putting some bonus in the pocket.
Do you think, Stephen, that with the time that we've been within the industry, that the recruitment landscape or staff incentives have changed? In that, back in my day, yes, I mean those trips to, America and Spain, and get absolutely kind of hammered. That's all changed now, that people want different things that were kind of, again, Andy, I mean, I get the impression that you're dealing with more millenniums. So, has the kind of desire for incentives changed, that it's not necessarily about the big wads of cash or the big trips? And, I mean, what do you both feel?
I think it has changed, and that what I noticed in the last business actually was people were moaning about having to spend a whole weekend with work. They wanted to spend it with the family. So actually, what they wanted was maybe an incentive that allowed them to do something with the family because they spend so much time at work. So I do think things have changed. And I do think that we need to listen more of, what do you actually want, rather than us shoving, a big hammered Ibiza weekend on you. As much as we all love one of those, we're making you go on it on a kind of a weekend. So I do think it's kind of changed. I do think we need to listen more of what they want. As recruiters, we do work long hours. So you can understand, why would you want to spend every quarter a whole weekend with the people that you've worked with all week? Not saying that's for everybody. Some people some people like it. And I guess with the millennials, it's not so bad. It's not that they've got families and stuff, so they're quite open to it. But still, some are homies. They just like to be at home and spend time with the family as opposed to doing these weekends. And they were actually made to feel bad where we used to work. If they didn't go, they were made to feel, you were ungrateful if you didn't want to go. And I completely disagreed with that. If they don't want to go, let's do something that incentivizes you, that you actually want to do.
Just before Christmas, we had a bit of a strategy day, and as part of that, I sort of asked in a roundabout way, I kind of asked the team, what do they want to achieve, so that in the next couple of years, so that I could kind of identify some possible incentives and that sort of stuff. And it's actually asking that question is really difficult for them to answer, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'd never considered how hard it is to answer that question, because it's like they don't know what's too big to ask for, what's too small. It's quite an interesting question to ask from a leadership position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is, and it's you wouldn't think something like Blackpool would come up, but actually it did. And would you believe you can actually have an all-inclusive weekend in Blackpool?
Have you tried it, Andy? Andy, have you tried it?
Don't get any ideas on the Blackpool weekend, Christina.
My mind is racing on what's included in the all-inclusive.
We actually found this out at the weekend, didn't we, Tom? So we went to Blackpool last weekend just on the whim. So Gary, Tom, and I, and Stacey, and little Corey went, and we were stood at the bar, and it was actually a little old lady that was in front of me, and she was like, "I'm all inclusive. I'm ordering a drink." So I was like, "Can you actually be all inclusive?" And she'd got the band on like you'd typically have, abroad in wherever. She'd got the band and she was getting these drinks on the all inclusive. So that's where it actually came from. So I went straight to reception and priced it up.
Come on, Mark, show a bit of willing. Let's do it.
I've done my time in Blackpool when I was younger.
That incentive came about because one of the lads in the office said they've never been to Blackpool, and was like, you can't go all your life and never go to Blackpool. So we did it. It's making it personal for them, but that's why that came about. Yeah, we thought you can't never have a weekend in Blackpool. You've got to experience it at least once.
And especially if you're in Manchester as well, surely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You will go to Blackpool.
Yeah. So, Mark, you haven't said a lot. Nothing changes.
Just taking it all in. Just taking it all in as normal.
You've been working with recruiters for about 12 months, at least 12 months longer than I have. So you've seen, just thinking from a brand perspective, brand and websites and therefore messaging, you've seen some changes over the years?
Yeah, I think it's like the guys have all said. I think that for me, if we go back sort of 10, 15 years, recruiters were to me very corporate, and it was all the suited and booted type people. And obviously that's one thing that seems to have changed. So I suppose that goes to the personal brand thing as well, in terms of people expressing sort of personality more rather than just being it felt very faceless, perhaps a bit back in the day for me. We years ago we used an agency back where I used to work, and there was no relationship. It was just it was almost transactional, whereas now it's very much, like Nigel said, obviously it's getting to know people. It's definitely a lot more personal than that. And then I think that sort of, goes across into the marketing side of things again. So like obviously working with Nigel and the Lavandi guys, it's, they've both got things on their websites that, are obviously things about expertise, but also, personal stuff as well. So I think that's something that's probably changed quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, agency is one of the best ways to show your your team a bit of love is to literally do it on the website. You know, show off how good your people are. Talk about their expertise. Talk about the sectors that they cover, how long they've been in the industry, and so on, and put them front and center, as opposed to the old-fashioned way of hiding who your recruiters were, in the hope that your rivals wouldn't headhunt them. But people realised a long time ago that your rivals know exactly who your staff are and how to contact them. And if you're keeping them a secret, you're only keeping them a secret from candidates. So showing that you're proud of your recruiters is a great way, or one of the best ways of holding on to them and making them feel like they're part of the family.
I think obviously with the advent of social media as well, that obviously changed, particularly I suppose with LinkedIn as well, because obviously everyone, you can see who's working for what companies and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to, what you've all said about looking, and it's the same in any industry as well. You're looking into the company. So whether it's someone looking at us, looking at this, or, if you're looking for a recruiter, you're going to see what, they're about by looking at their website, looking at their socials, and get a feel for whether they're the right people to talk to.
Yeah. Before the internet, I used to have sheets of paper stapled to the wall with lists of recruiters working for rival agencies and who I could work out that their clients were. So I would know, who was working on which client in which area, how long they'd been with Melville Craig or whichever other agency, and whether any feedback from clients said that they were good or not good, or indeed candidates said they were good or not good, and suitable to approach and try and headhunt one way or another. So with the internet, the LinkedIn is the biggest database of every single recruiter in the world. If you're not on LinkedIn, you're not a recruiter. So it's not hard to know who works where.
Yeah. Do you think that's changed as well? Because I've noticed a lot more, and I think, Christina, you tried to push us a lot more to do this, whereby recruiters and recruitment businesses have been a lot more open about who they are actually working with, and are actually advertising who they are working with nowadays. And I think that, I guess that must stem from the confidence they've got of the relationship that they've got with that client, in that they're quite happy to advertise.
Okay, candidates love that stuff. Candidates love to know who the eventual client is, and if you're close with your client, you can have agreement with them that if a candidate applies, then you're chopping up, Andy. If you're close with your client, you can say to the client, anyone who applies direct, send them to us, and we'll vet them before submitting them for interview.
Yeah.
And the number of candidates who will apply when the employer is named, as opposed to when it's a secret, is night and day. Is totally different. So the volume and the caliber of people who will apply when you name the employer is much better. The days of having a mystery client, our client, a big manufacturer in this sector in middle of Scotland somewhere, you can't do that because no one's going to apply for that. That's just that's not even a real job.
Do you think clients are more open to the vacancies being advertised that way when they're on a retained model?
Yes. So I used to pitch for retained all the time, and what I would want is them to give me money to then put a display advert in the Telegraph or the Glasgow Herald or wherever, and clearly we're associating our brand as an agency with their brand as an employer, and sometimes the agency wouldn't be named at all, other than the phone number or at the bottom of the advert. So yeah, that really, agencies should never have to put their name on any adverts. It should be the name of the employer, because that's the attraction. The name of the agency is kind of irrelevant in most cases. It's the employer that you want to be pushing, and you're acting on their behalf. You're recruiting on their behalf.
Nigel, you do a lot of retained work. I think you're only retained now, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
So if you the clients that you've worked with, have they all? I know I was Stick Green Umbrella wherever, but like generally, have the clients been open?
It really depends, because it depends on whether it's a confidential hire. So if it's if I go to market for a client and it's a confidential hire, then no. But if it's not, then they're more than happy with that. Yeah.
Mark mentioned something I want to pick up. We need to look at wrapping up, but Mark mentioned personal branding, and I tried not to give the smile away too much, because it's something that I haven't like literally sat with the guys at the Vandy and with Nigel and said, like, we need to talk about your personal brand. But there have been several times in conversation where the stuff around personal branding has come up, and I've had to put a bit of pressure on to make it happen. So I think Andy's just dropped off screen. I'm sure he'll be back again in a minute. But like Nigel, when we first started working together, it was like just trying to get you to turn the camera on was a mission in itself. And
Yeah,
you're doing all sorts, aren't you?
yeah. I mean, like I've said, I've been in the recruitment industry for a very long time, and my fear was social media. I tried to stay away from social media for as long as I could, and it was just a fear factor, you know. Again, I'm old school. I've built my business up from picking up the phone and phoning clients and building relationships, and that's how it's worked. So when the time came where I had to kind of reach out and gain new business, you know, the landscape had changed, because, you know, social media's there, LinkedIn, Facebook, you know, etc. So I met Christina at one of my networking meetings, and I just approached Christina and said, look, you know, I need help. I am absolutely petrified of social media. I know I've got to do it, but I haven't got a clue. Can you help me? Do you remember that, Christina? And so, you know, we started, but the first thing that Christina worked on was my branding. And then she got me to overcome my fear of getting in front of camera. I have no fear speaking to people, meeting people, even speaking, you know, in crowds. But the social media thing, looking into a camera, was just a mental block. And through training and coaching with Christina, she got me to overcome that. And basically, it's just being able to not take yourself too seriously and not to strive for perfection, because it's not about that. It's all about, you know, you and what you're about and your message. You know, I would spend hours just trying to perfect, you know, what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. And then eventually you realize, just be yourself, you know. And again, it was through the coaching that's really helped me personally, and also my business.
I think we were pretty similar to that, Christina, weren't we? Because we were very against, well, not necessarily against, but petrified of going onto the screen. I think it's the whole perception of, it's almost like you feel kind of silly that you're talking to a camera. It's not a person.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, it's just like that perception that it's not real, so you're almost silly for doing it. And I just think it's practice. I say this like I'm an absolute expert at it now, and I'm far from it. I'd love to be able to do them like you do it, Christine. And you know, you walk down the street and you can. It's just a natural flow. And I think, like you say, Nigel, it's just being able to be natural at it and actually just be you. But it's just so much easier said than done. Well, I don't find it easy at all.
Yeah. Can I chip in just while you're talking about that with my gadget of the week? People who know me might know that I like a gadget or two, and my gadget of the week is this two little radio mics which connect with this little receiver to your phone. So you can have your phone on the other side of the room. You've got microphones that are picking you up, so you don't need to worry about being close up to be picked up by it. But you could have two people being interviewed or speaking with each other. You're making a video. You might be outside. You might be across the road. But with these, then you can be in any venue and recording that. So when you're recording normally, then being conscious of the camera is something that puts people off a lot. But if you can be just a little bit further back and you've got a radio mic on, then you can forget that that's going on and speak with someone else. Speaking with someone else is a great way to be on camera because you're not doing it yourself to the camera. You might be talking with a hiring manager about the role that they've got, about why the job has come up, what the prospects are, what the training is, when they want someone to start, all those kinds of things. And you can literally be doing that in the office of the client. Just prop up your phone on a little tripod and sit talking with the hiring manager. So any number of things that you can do with that, but 60 quid gets you these, and they work really well.
Can you send me the link to those, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think this is the thing. It's like when you think about the tech, when you think about all the gadgets and everything else, you think, oh God, I'm going to have to invest loads of money, but you really don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
It's like some of I'm at home, so the lighting's crap, and like 1 minute I'm all in shadow, and then the sun will be through, and it's like I'm like that again. But it's just a ring light.
Yeah.
All my ring lights are in the office, but it's like a ring light would suddenly make what's on my camera right now much better.
Mm-hmm.
It's having a webcam rather than just using the camera on your laptop, which again is like, it's not a lot of money, and you don't have to buy it all at once. But equally, you don't have to buy any of it until you're at that point where you feel like, okay, I've got it now.
Yeah.
I'm there now. Like I've got a baseline. Now I can improve from there. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes people think it's going to be this mammoth task to get it right, and it just doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'd say is Antonio, because me walking down the street doing my lives and everything else, nobody sees the 30 seconds before that. Nobody sees 5 minutes before that when I've tried to do it 3 times and got it wrong, or Mark will tell you, like, if I'm going to go and do a live, I don't just go live and it happens. There's like 4 stop-starts before that. Actually, I don't even manage to get as far as hitting the live button. I'm messed up already. And
there's almost certainly an expletive before it goes live.
And they laugh at me because afterwards I'm like on the live and I'm all like this, and then it finishes. I'm like.
I think to your 4 stop-starts though, Christina, I'd probably have about 25 stop-starts.
But fast forward, was it 5-6 years I've been doing like lives and that kind of thing. So if you can start now, 5-6 years, you'll be
I'll be as good as you.
Better. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there because otherwise we're going to end up going over the hour. Thank you to everyone that's joined us for this International Recruiters Day Green Umbrella live lunch. I was going to say, like, Stephen, were you asking me to plug TA Tech then? Because I'd have not done that right.
No, there's no need for that. This one here.
Yeah, perfect. So Stephen, basically, thank you for starting it.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Today. It's like we need to just every year make sure we're doing more and more. And maybe there should be an event. Maybe we should get that going as well.
We definitely look for it.
There would be way too much alcohol there.
We could have it in Blackpool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Nothing says International Recruiters Day like Blackpool.
Awesome. Stephen, LinkedIn's the best place for people to catch up with you, correct?
Absolutely. Stephen O'Don on all the social media platforms, and LinkedIn. You'll find me.
Brilliant.
Run a quick search. I'm not hard to find.
Cool. Nigel, thank you for your time. I know you need to get going as well. So Nigel, Next Move Recruitment, lots of retained perm. Give us a quick rundown.
Yeah, we're basically tech and cybersecurity executive search firm, and we provide searches globally. So that's what we do: mid to senior level, management and board. So that's what we do.
Awesome. Basically, I'm not going to ask everyone because it's just LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn, find these people. Andy, obviously, people are going to find you and Tom on LinkedIn as well. But you're very niche, aren't you? So give us the pitch there too.
So we are beauty, cosmetics, and personal care. So we do everything within that, basically. So we recruit for brands and contract manufacturers, any roles from, well, I guess 30k kind of salary levels is kind of the minimum we do, right the way up to kind of C-suite level, and sales and marketing, MPD operations, MPD new product development, training, and HR are kind of the main roles that we look after. So yeah, that's us.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. And Tom, I really appreciate your time, because I know you've stood in for Gary last minute, probably weren't given any choice whatsoever.
You know as well, Christina. That was actually very useful for me. I know that wasn't intended to be a training session, but you've got a wealth of experience. So I found that very useful. I took a lot of mental notes there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom. And Mark, I would thank you, but you didn't contribute a lot.
No. I said to Andy on an email yesterday, I was there to make up the numbers, literally to give it an even screen, so there were 6 people there. That was it. I'm just there just to fill that gap, literally.
I thought you were going to give us a tune on that guitar.
I know, no. But I do have one purpose, else Jane will kill me, and that is to make sure we all wave so I can get a screenshot.
All right, okay.
Let's do that now,
see, that is the reason I am there.
Come on, Tom, wave.
That'll do.
Awesome. So that's awesome. So that's us done. Thank you everyone for joining us. Love you all. Love you lots and lots. And we'll see you next Thursday, 12 o'clock, live on my LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube for the next Green Umbrella live lunch. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.